The very first time I engaged in the dark arts of video game piracy was when I was sitting on my bedroom floor as a kid with an Amstrad CPC cassette and a dual deck hi-fi stereo. I borrowed my mate's copy of Ghostbusters, shoved it into deck A, put a blank C90 cassette from Woolworths into deck B and hit record. What followed was 30 minutes of what sounded like a fax machine having a nervous breakdown, but once done, I had a free video game. The funny thing is, at the time, I didn't even know this was piracy. I just thought it was just something that everybody did. And I mean, I wasn't wrong. Well, actually, yeah, I was wrong. Yes, it is piracy, whatever that was. But in the UK, and I'm guessing most of Europe, this was very much commonplace. Every single person that I knew, sure, yeah, they had a whole bunch of official Amstrad CPC games, but amongst their games they would also have a load of these unofficial mixtapes filled to the brim with games that they borrowed from their mates down the road. How tight were we? I mean, most of those games were no more than like £2. But even though it has become slightly harder than simply just copying your games on a cheap hi-fi system, consumers still go above and beyond in order to... Hang on, what does this say? Play imported games? Yeah, alright. As consoles started to take over the world, the only real true way to mod your console was with a mod chip. And more often than not, those mod chips cost more money than multiple video games. This was the so-called professional option, and if you didn't want to pay a bloke down the market 40 quid to do it for you, it was also the scariest option. Buying a mod chip meant receiving a tiny piece of silicon in a plastic baggie, accompanied by wiring diagrams that looked more complicated than a bomb disposal manual. You were expected to take a boiling hot soldering iron to pins the size of an eyelash, one wrong move, and all of a sudden, your console was a very expensive paperweight. So instead of resorting to advanced electrical engineering, many gamers chose alternative methods. Today, we are looking at the absolute dodgy, desperate, and destructive ways people played imported games. And yes, I suppose I should probably put this disclaimer in here. Don't copy anything you see in this video. Not only is it dodgy, it's also dangerous. So with that, let's get on. Oh no, yep, one more thing. It's naughty to pirate stuff. Don't pirate stuff. It's a very naughty thing to do. Let's get on with the video. Let's start off with the most obvious one, Nintendo. When the GameCube launched, Nintendo thought they were being incredibly clever. To combat piracy, they didn't use standard CDs or standard DVDs like the PS2 or the Xbox did. They used proprietary 8cm mini DVDs. They figured that if their disc physically couldn't fit into the console, it was going to be an unbeatable physical DRM wall. But, as we all know, you can never underestimate the sheer determination of someone that doesn't want to pay Nintendo tax. Eventually, hackers managed to crack the console using a convoluted mix of breadboard adapters, Phantasy Star Online exploits, and action replay discs. But then, they immediately hit that massive practical brick wall. Blank mini DVD-Rs were actually quite rare to find on the high street at the time. And more importantly, they were more expensive too. In some cases, you would spend more on the blank media than you would on some random third-party game. Obviously, I'm not talking about the first-party games here. Honestly, Nintendo, I'm not talking about them. Yeah, it was not cheap to buy that media. Regardless, standard full-size blank DVDs cost about, I don't know, what, 10p a spindle? The problem was that the 12cm disc physically just could not fit inside the GameCube's tiny, adorable, perfectly engineered disc tray. So, what was the bedroom engineer's solution? Violence. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're like me and you have a soft spot for the retro gaming consoles of old, look away now. I have warned you. Rather than spending a little extra money on the correct blank media or simply accepting defeat, pirates literally took hacksaws, Dremel tools or heated kitchen knives and melted or cut off the entire top half of the GameCube shell. I am not joking. Some inhuman individuals brutally sawed off the top 10% off of Nintendo's most unique console just so that it could fit a full-size disc, turning a family-friendly console into an exposed spinning buzzsaw. God forbid you sneeze too hard or the family cat decided to jump onto the TV stand, because that spinning disc would instantly turn into a plastic shuriken. All of this absolute carnage just to save a few pennies. You see all these games on the screen? These are newer game suggestions for all of you fans out there that like games like Contra, Blazing Chrome, My Friend Pedro, Hunt Down, and Guns, Gore, and Cannoli 2. More of a top-down shooter? Here's 12 is Better Than 6, Wizard with a Gun, The Hong Kong Massacre, and the classic Hotline Miami. And finally, for all of you platformer fans out there, you got Castle of Illusion Remake, Season After Fall, Nocturnal, and Marsupilami. Every game I've mentioned so far and every game you see on the screen was barely more than a couple of quid, bucks, dollars, euros, whatever, and it's all thanks to longtime channel sponsor Instant Gaming. Yes, every game you see on the screen is less than £3. I've said it before, but if you want to browse what cheap games are on offer, all you need to do is click that link below or scan the QR code on the screen, go to the search bar, type nothing in, just hit enter and then slide the bar up to your desired amount, and voila! Loads and loads of games for no more than a cup of coffee. Perfect for all of you Steam Deck users out there that want to try something new. A huge thanks to everyone who continued to support the show using my link or QR code, and for everybody out there who's been pre-ordering newer games too, games like Resident Evil Requiem, Reanimal, Forza 6 and Toxic Commando. Anyway, as always, thank you guys so much for your support, but for now, let's get back to the video. Long before the PlayStation 1 was an easy mod, gamers found a bit of a fatal flaw. Sony's fancy security only bothered to check for copyright protection during the very first boot sequence, and once that blank disc had done its secret handshake, the security gate was left wide open. The hack to exploit this was beautifully, brilliantly Council Estate. And again, I knew many people back in the day that did this very thing. Not me, of course, because again, I was a good boy. Although I do remember doing the same thing when playing the original Grand Theft Auto, so that it would play random tracks off of my Pete Tong mix CD instead. But regardless, back to the hack. Firstly, you had to lie to the console and tell it that the lid was shut whilst it was physically wide open. You see, tucked away over in the corner was a tiny little plastic sensor button. You'd take a snapped matchstick, a spring from a mangled Bic biro, or a sticky glob of stolen blue tack and physically jam that sensor down, essentially outsmarting the £300 piece of Japanese engineering with the random bits that you would find in your pencil case. Either that, or you could be related to the chap in the first segment and rip the entire tray off. Oh my god. Then you would need to boot up a real legitimate game. My suggestion would be the free Demo 1 disc that came in the box. No point risking your precious copy of Klonoa on this method. And then if this is the first time doing it, this is where it gets really stressful. Keep an eye on the disc, it spins, then it spins a little faster, and then that's your cue. Time to strike. You had to reach into the machine, pinch the edges of the spinning disc, and literally rip it forcibly off of the spindle with your bare hands, slamming your dodgy verbatim CDR copy of Crash Bandicoot into the motor before the laser realises it's been played. Another way of explaining it? It's exactly like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indy swaps the idol for a bag of sand, except if you messed up, you're the one that ruined your console, not a giant boulder. Out of everything on this list, this was probably the one that most people did. outside of the cassette tape copying in the intro. Kids everywhere were snapping these fragile plastic spindles right off, or shredding their legit discs against the casing. Because if you got the timing wrong, you were trying to force a stationary disc onto a motor that was already spinning, which obviously fried the internals in no time. If you thought the PlayStation 1 was bad, the PlayStation 2 took physical drive abuse to a whole new ear-bleeding level. Properly modding the PlayStation 2 meant soldering about 20 microscopic wires to the motherboard. Most of us didn't have a degree in electrical engineering, so instead companies started selling things like the Swap Magic boot disc. It was the exact same principle as the PlayStation 1. You boot the real disc, trick the system, then swap it for your backed up copy of Vice City. But there was a massive problem that you've probably already worked out. The PlayStation 1 had a disc tray that opened like this, and the PlayStation 2 had a motorized disc tray that opened up like this. Yep, attached to that spinning PlayStation logo, if you ever pressed that shiny blue eject button, the console would wipe its memory, realizing that you've just swapped the game and immediately slap you with the terrifying howling red screen of death.
Please insert a PlayStation or PlayStation 2 format disc.
So, what was the solution? Stop being tight and actually go and buy your games? Pfft, no. All you needed was a hook-shaped piece of plastic that you could jam into your PlayStation. This is the slide card. Firstly, you got to remove your memory card and the cover of just the disc tray, insert a boot disc called Swap Magic, the DVD version for silver bottom games or the CD version for blue bottom games. You then shove that plastic crowbar underneath the tray, blindly grope around in the dark, hook onto a tiny white mechanical latch, glide it to the right and literally yank the tray open against the wheel of the electric motor. Insert your disc and then do it all in reverse, pushing against the motor, making sure not to grab hold of the system's delicate cogs or rubber belt. I mean, the issues here are obvious. Imagine having to do this for every single game, imported or not. Well, do this enough times and that's what you will end up doing. Personally, I've never done this, yet my PlayStation 2 does have a temperamental disc tray. It's what the early versions of the console are known for. So it's pretty obvious that by ripping it open with a plastic hook that could potentially strip the teeth straight off of the gears in a worst case scenario, but more than likely destroy the motor, it was only a matter of time before that very thing happened. Eventually your beloved £300 PlayStation 2 will just give up. You'll hit that eject button to play a real game and the tray just simply isn't going to move. It'll just sit there making an agonizing, horrifying machine gun clicking sound, refusing to ever open or close properly ever again. Now, if you go try searching for this particular hack nowadays, you are going to find yourself hitting a pretty annoying brick wall. Not only because Microsoft's console naming conventions are an absolute joke, but secondly, and more importantly, this specific piracy tactic was actually quite short-lived. It was eventually replaced by a much safer soft mod where you just plugged a dodgy memory card into a controller and exploited a glitch in Splinter Cell. Because of that, this original method to play backed up copies on your original Xbox has largely been lost to time. However, we are going to go all the way back to the beginning for this one because this was the original way they did this. It shares a similar method to the original ones we've looked at already on the PlayStation 1 and 2. But this one is significantly more dangerous because you are kind of working with a live voltage. To stop you from just plugging your original Xbox hard drive into a PC and then ripping games onto it, Microsoft secured the drive with an ATA password lock. The drive was completely bricked until you pressed the Xbox power button, at which point the console's motherboard would send a unique password to the drive to unlock it. So, since hackers couldn't obviously guess the password, they had to get the Xbox to do the hard work for them before they stole the hard drive. And here is how they did it. You had to crack open your original Xbox and then crack open your old Windows XP desktop PC, placing them side by side on the desk. You then turn on your Xbox, you wait for the giant green flubber animation to finish and the dashboard to load, and with that, the drive was now officially unlocked. And here is where it gets a little tricky. Leaving the power cable completely plugged in so that the hard drive kept spinning, you had to reach your sweaty hands into the live powered on Xbox, grab the white-grey IDE data ribbon, and then physically yank it out of the back of the hard drive. You then had to quickly grab the IDE cable coming from the now running PC and then forcibly shove it into the back of the Xbox hard drive. Again, you turn on your Xbox so it unlocks the hard drive, you then pull out the IDE cable and not the power cable, otherwise bad things will happen, and then plug that hard drive into your Windows XP. Insane. Look, IDE cables were never designed to be hot swapped like modern USBs. Pushing 40 metal pins into a live spinning hard drive at the exact same time was a serious cowboy electrician job. If your hand was slightly shaking and you pushed that connector in at a slightly wrong angle, you would instantly bend a pin, causing a catastrophic electrical short and completely frying the motherboard of the Xbox, or worse, blow up your family's tiny PC. Tiny PC? Yeah, okay, even by 2000 standards, that was retro. Either way, gamers were literally risking electrocution and thousands of pounds worth of hardware damage across two completely different machines. Also, they could play a downloaded copy of Halo 2. It wasn't worth it. Finally, we arrive at the absolute peak of sketchy, fire hazard piracy hardware. A hacksaw unbelievably dangerous, it could literally burn your house down. To install custom firmware on an early PlayStation Portable, allowing you to play downloaded ISOs, SNES emulators, and homebrew right off of the memory stick, you needed something called a Pandora's Battery. This was a specific modified battery that forced the console to boot into a hidden factory developer mode. Now, you could go and buy these batteries off of dodgy overseas websites, or you could make one yourself out of a modified version of the original battery that comes in the PlayStation Portable, which is not a good idea. To do this, you had to pry open the thick welded plastic casing of a live, fully charged lithium-ion battery using a flathead screwdriver or possibly a knife. Just let that sink in for a second. Once you finally cracked open the shell, you had to squint at a tiny circuit board, find an EEPROM chip roughly the size of a grain of rice, take a Stanley knife or a sewing needle and physically sever a microscopic metal leg known as pin 5. Yep, you're taking a Stanley knife to a pressurized lithium battery. One slip of the hand, one tiny puncture to the silver battery pouch beneath that board, and you would instantly be causing a venting, unstoppable chemical fire right there on your bedroom desk. Here's one I found earlier. Still not good enough for you? Here's another lithium battery attached to a scooter. Your job is to try your best to not let this happen. Okay? By the way, I absolutely love the top comment of this video. Damn, I remember doing this as a kid and the first time the battery sparked on me. Second time was successful though.
Oh, for me too, haha. And I was so excited that I can finally play so many games without to pay for it.
If you were one of the lucky ones and actually succeeded without burning your own skin off, you then had to wrap this mutilated, highly volatile chemical pouch in electrical tape, shove it back into your beloved PSP, and pray that it didn't explode in your hands. Gamers were literally risking third-degree burns, property damage and inhaling toxic smoke just so they didn't have to pay 30 quid for a copy of Luminous. Which, if you ask me, is well worth 30 quid because that's one of the greatest games ever made. Hey there guys, thanks for checking out the video. Seriously guys, I am enjoying making videos so much right now, and hopefully, that comes out in the videos. Hopefully you guys see that. It's because of you guys, all of my patrons and YouTube members, all these names you see down here, and everyone else that just simply likes the video, gives it a thumbs up, subscribes if you want to see more content like this. I can't thank you guys enough for all your support, but let's give an extra big shout out to all of the patrons and YouTube members that allow me to make this content every single week. Thank you guys so much. Stephen Hefner, Livestream, Thomas Coyote Baxter, Dina81, Kematura Villarreal, Derekuda, Enraged Gecko, Akatimo84, Ian Quell, Mind of the Unsane, XZX, Andrew Dalton, Bone Perez, British Video Game Nerd, Chev Matic, Chris aka Brackman, Conrad Constantine, To Action Saxon, Dina Insidious, Bliss, Jay is Manchild, Jabba Al Aiden, Jeff Mianowski, Keiju Samurai 1985, Livestream, Mass Replay, Mike Fallon, Nicholas Bertner, Patrick Grip Jansen, Paul Float, Richard Alderjic, Shadow Dragon, Swift Justice Peterson, The Sneaky Ferrets, Vitas Varnes, and Ye Old Ham Burglar. Thank you guys so much for your support. I hope you're liking this content. Like I said, I've got 2 complete histories on the way at the moment. I'm working on a very big one and a much smaller one, but still very well-known franchise. I've got another video like this, another listicle type video coming, and I'm working on an exclusive Kick Scammer video which will be ready within the next couple of days, and that one's only ever going out to my supporters of the show. So if you want to check out these videos before they go live, or the ones that just stay exclusive, you know what to do. Just support the show. There's links down below. Thank you guys for your support, but yeah, I'll leave it there. Much love guys. Hopefully I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.
Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it and reverse it. It's your